Hi, welcome to Give Me the Bible, where God's Word speaks for itself. I've heard many people ask the question, what version should I be reading from? What Bible translation should I choose? After all, when you look, especially if you're in America and you look at the English translations or anywhere that you're at and you speak English, you know that there's just tons of English translations of the Bible. So the question is, which one of those do I choose? Well, let me give you some helpful things to think about, and let me just say this right up front. I will be talking specifically about English translations. However, the principles that I'm going to be talking about apply to any language, honestly. And so I think this will be helpful no matter what language you speak. But remember that the Bible was written to specific people across different cultures and different times. And consequently, for people who spoke different languages. And so here we are in the 21st century, and the problem is the Bible was not written in English. The Bible was written primarily, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew and Aramaic, and the New Testament was written in Koine Greek. So here's the issue. It was not written in English, so how do we understand it? Well, this is where the process of translation comes in. And so let me just try to explain this as simply as I can. Basically, I want you to view it as a scale. On the one hand, you have a translation philosophy that says, okay, we need to stick as close as we can to the original text. Let's just deal with the New Testament right now in the Greek. So the philosophy here is, okay, we want to be as close to word for word as we can while it still makes sense. Okay, you recognize you can't really have a perfect word for word translation, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. Sometimes that happens even with Spanish to English, because Spanish, they do things backwards from English speakers, and if you're Spanish, you're probably thinking, you know, the people who speak English, well, they do it backwards. Well, okay, we can argue that later maybe, but the point is, if you do a perfect word for word, it's probably going to have a hard time making sense. However, that's really their philosophy on this end of the scale. Try to get it as close to word for word as possible. Now, on the other end of the scale is the philosophy of thought for thought. In other words, what is the general meaning of the Bible verse, and what is the general meaning of what they're trying to get across, and how can we portray that in English? Now, what you have is, from this scale, from word to word, all the way over here to thought, is you have different English Bible translations that fall all along this scale from word to word to thought. Now let me make this point. Many people prefer the thought for thought because generally these translations are easier to read. They are easier to understand because the translators just tried to paint the big picture. So you might see Bibles like the Message, or the Living Bible, or the New Living Translation over here in this area of thought for thought, and those things are very easy to read. However, let me make this point, and this is absolutely crucial. It's not about making the Bible easier to read. It's about understanding what the original authors intended when they wrote it. So if in our efforts to make it just sound easier and to make it kind of roll off our tongues while we read it a little bit better, if in that process we really lose important details that the writers intended us to get, then I think we're really doing ourselves a disservice. And we're going to miss out on a lot of things that God really intends for us to know. And so I recommend translations that are in this word for word category. And so translations that would fall into that category would be like the New American Standard Bible, or the American Standard Bible, or the English Standard Version, or say the King James or the New King James. I think if you stay in that realm, you're going to be safe. And I understand maybe those might be a little more challenging to read than the Message or the Living Bible, and those things sound easier. But I think if you're not careful, we're really going to miss some important points in the details that God wanted us to know. So hopefully that's helpful in clearing up some of the choices. You can go on Google and research that further on Bible translation charts, and you'll kind of see the same thing. Thank you so much for your interest in spiritual things. Lord willing, I'll see you next time.